So in this lesson, I'm going to begin by officially defining what chemistry is, and then we're going to look at some of the key laboratory tools that you'll use throughout this class. So first of all, before you start this, you need to try and define chemistry in your own words. Before I give you the official definition, what do you think chemistry is? Now, chemistry is the study of the composition, the structure, the properties, and the reactions of matter. And we're going to look at all four of these components throughout this year of chemistry. So let's look at a couple of the tools. The first is a beaker. Now, a beaker looks like this, and a beaker is used to store excess material. It's never used for measuring because it is not a precise instrument, and it may be heated. You're allowed to heat that, and so it will often heat that on a hot plate. The next tool is an Erlenmeyer flask. Now, an Erlenmeyer flask is used for storing solutions because it's got a very small opening at the top. It's not ever used for measuring. As you can see, it's not a precise tool, and it may be heated. The next tool is a graduated cylinder, which looks like this. Now, a graduated cylinder is used for measuring. You must use a graduated cylinder that has a volume that's slightly higher than the volume that you desire. Because otherwise what you'll have to do, let's say for example, I'm using a 25 milliliter graduated cylinder and I want to measure 40 milliliters of a substance. Well, then I'd have to measure 25 milliliters and then measure another 15, and that is very imprecise. And so as a result, make sure if you're measuring 40 milliliters, make sure you're using a 50 milliliter graduated cylinder. The next tool is a volumetric flask. Now, a volumetric flask looks like this, and it's used for measuring a volume, but you must use a volumetric flask with an exact volume desired. So, for example, looking at this volumetric flask, it is a 100 milliliter volumetric flask. So 100 milliliters is the only volume you can measure with this flask. Some of the other volumes we have is a liter, we have 500 milliliter, we have even little tiny 10 milliliter volumetric flasks, but you can't measure any volumes in between those volumes. The next tool are tongs. Now, tongs look like this, and tongs are used to pick up hot objects. Now, a test tube clamp looks like this, and those are used for holding test tubes. So while you might have used test tube clamps in biology, I don't believe you use tongs, and we'll be mostly using tongs in this class. The next tool are well plates. Now, well plates look like this, and the purpose of a well plate is to observe small volume reactions. So we can look all at once on those well plates at 12 different reactions all happening at the same time. The next tool is a crucible / an evaporating dish. Now, these are two different tools, but they look similar. So this here is a crucible. Notice a crucible is very small and it's got a tiny little lid, and you can heat that under a Bunsen burner, which we'll look at in 1 second. The other tool you can use is an evaporating dish. Now, an evaporating dish is larger than a crucible, and it's much easier to evaporate water off of a solid using an evaporating dish, but it depends on what you're working with, which one you choose to use. The next tool is the Bunsen burner that I referenced, and it looks like this, and it's used to heat chemicals, and we'll be using Bunsen burners quite a bit this year. The next tool is a ring stand, and a ring stand looks like this, and we'll be using that in order to elevate objects. The next tool we have is a spatula. Now, a spatula is used to transfer solid chemicals from containers. And so instead of just pouring out a solid, we use a spatula to pick up a little bit of that solid and transfer it into whatever container we're transferring it into. A watch glass is used to observe small volume reactions. The reason why it might be better than a well plate is because you can actually pick it up and look through. Because it's transparent, you can actually see a reaction occurring from top and bottom. Now, a funnel, which looks like this, is used to transfer liquids. It also can be used as a filter, as we will see in this class. A flint striker looks like this, and that's actually used just to ignite Bunsen burners. The next tool is a weigh boat, and a weigh boat looks like this. They're big ones and small ones, and they're used to hold solids while they're being weighed on the scale. And so if you have a very small mass you're needing to weigh, you'll use a little weigh boat, while if you have a large mass, you'll use a larger weigh boat. And this is the electric scale, which is used to find mass of chemicals. And the last tool is parafilm. Now, parafilm is used to cover openings in containers. So for example, you can use it on a volumetric flask or an Erlenmeyer flask, and that's to prevent any contaminants from entering a solution that you've prepared.